to the Planning Commission meeting for the City of Vacaville Planning Commission on Tuesday, December 15th, 2020. Before we go any further, there's a script that I would like to read regarding tonight's meeting. We are conducting this meeting in concurrence with the Governor's Executive Order N-29-20. We ask that you bear with us as we use the remote tools. As our habit is here, we will go to sometimes extraordinary lengths to make sure that people have a chance to participate. That may mean that sometimes we have dead air as people are working through issues, and on occasion we may have staff contact someone who's having trouble directly in order to get them in to have the chance to participate. Planning Commission meetings can be viewed live on the city's website, which is www.cityofvacaville.com, or on cable channel 26. Instructions to participate from a computer are provided on the city's website, and you can contact us via the links on the agenda. If you're following along on the telephone and prompted for a participant ID, press the pound sign to be connected to the meeting. If you are planning to participate, please follow along on the telephone, not on channel 26. We have a broadcast delay on channel 26. Callers who wish to comment can raise their hand by pressing *9. Depending upon the individual settings you have, you may need to also press *6 after you are unmuted by the host in order to open your microphone. And computer users requesting to speak can click the raise hand button that is provided with the Zoom controls. And that's all that I have for those introductory comments. And with that, I will ask the secretary to call the roll.
Good evening, Planning Commissioners. Chair McCauley.
Here.
Vice Chair Fortney.
Vice Chair Fortney is here.
Thank you. Commissioner Aldrich.
Here.
Commissioner Beaumont.
Here.
Commissioner Alan Johnson.
Here.
Commissioner Brett Johnson.
Here.
Commissioner Lightfoot.
Here.
Chair, we have a quorum.
Thank you. If you would all please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Item number 3 is communications. And Mr. Baderi, I believe we have several items of communication. Would you go over them, please?
Yes, thank you, Chair. We have several items of communications. They are listed on the agenda website for folks who are able to log in and look at the agenda online. So we have first a copy of the minutes from the Planning Commission hearing of March 17, 2020, at which the Planning Commission approved a project on the same site as the Harbison Apartments, subject of an agenda item later this evening. We also have correspondence received from Mr. Frank Gebauer, a citizen of Vacaville, expressing support for the Harbison Apartment project, item 7A. We have additional correspondence from the applicant, Rich Alexander, for agenda item 7A, explaining concerns about some of the items in the project conditions of approval. Those items will be discussed in the staff's presentation. We have a copy of the final parking study completed for the downtown specific plan, and correspondence from 2 parties with the Vacaville Historical Society and the Vacaville Genealogical Society with comments related to the downtown specific plan. We'll mention those items in a brief report on a status update for the downtown specific plan, agenda item 8A. And I believe that is it. Staff, are there any other items that I've neglected? Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Baderi. The next item, item number 4, is approval of the agenda for tonight's meeting. Are there any proposed changes to the agenda?
This is Doug. I'll move to approve the agenda.
Okay,
This is Ann, second.
we have a motion and a second to approve the agenda. Will the secretary call the roll, please?
Commissioners Aldrich,
Yes.
Beaumont,
Yes.
Alan Johnson,
Aye.
Brett Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner Lightfoot,
Aye.
Vice Chair Fortney,
Yes.
Chair McCauley.
Aye. Passes unanimously. Next item is business from the floor. This is the time to address the commission with issues that are not on the agenda for tonight's meeting, but that are within the commission's subject matter jurisdiction. A maximum of 3 minutes per speaker or group spokesperson per the government code and the Vacaville Municipal Code. Is there anyone that shows in the attendance list who wishes to address business from the floor?
Chair, I see no hands.
Okay, if no hands are raised, then we will go on to item number 6, which is the consent calendar. There are 2 items on the consent calendar, the minutes from our November 17th meeting and the calendar for next year. 2 things I'll note. The agenda actually says 6B is approval of the 2021 consent calendar. When we take an action, I would say that we should strike that word, and item 6B would simply be approval of the 2021 calendar. I do have one correction to the minutes in looking at the item number 7A, Villages Vanden, under Commissioner comments, the last bullet, there's a sentence that says, "We are currently in discussion with the developers." That "we" was a statement from the developer, but the "we" almost implies that it's the city. So I would ask that that be corrected to say the developer is currently in discussions with other developers. That clarifies what the "we" means. Are there any other changes to first the minutes? I don't hear any changes to the minutes, and the proposed to change B from 2021 consent calendar to 2020 calendar. Do I have a motion to approve the consent calendar with the changes?
So
Yeah, no,
this is
so
Alan.
moved.
Okay, I heard Alan Johnson with the motion, and who's the second?
Jan Aldrich.
Okay, and Aldrich for the second. Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
Commissioners Aldrich,
Yes.
Beaumont,
Yes.
Alan Johnson,
Aye.
Brett Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner Lightfoot,
Aye.
Vice Chair Fortney,
Yes.
Chair McCauley.
Aye, approved unanimously. We'll now move to our public hearing, item 7A, Harbison Townhomes. Before we have the staff report on this, I need to disclose some ex parte communications. I had a meeting with the developer, both his engineer and the developer, where they reviewed their reasons for changing the project and some of their concerns with the conditions of approval. And we talked for about 45 minutes on the project. There's nothing that we discussed that is not then contained in either the staff report or the correspondence from the developer. But I did need to disclose that ex parte communications. Do any of the other commissioners have ex parte to discuss?
Chairman McCauley, I also had such a meeting with the same parameters.
This is Chair Beaumont, or Chair, this is Doug Beaumont. Yes, I spoke with the developer, with Jan for about 30 minutes.
Chair, this is Commissioner Courtney. I had a meeting with the developer and their engineer.
Same for Commissioner Alan Johnson.
This is Commissioner Lightfoot. I'll note I did not have a meeting with the developer.
Okay, thank you all very much. I will now turn over to staff for the presentation on this item.
Thank you, members of the Planning Commission and Chair. The item before you tonight is the Harbison Townhomes project. Specifically, we received a plan development and environmental review request to construct 160 townhome style apartments at the northwest corner of Harbison Drive and Ulantis Drive. As Director Buderi had indicated, the minutes for the previous project has been provided to the commission for the Harbison Senior Apartments. That was a project that was originally approved by the commission in March of this year, earlier this year. And the applicant has since decided to revise the project to take away the senior component and to also change building footprint locations. And so what you have before you now is the applicant's change to the project, and we'll go through that and explain some of the components of this new project for the commission. So a little bit about the project itself. It's still on the 8.86 acres of a site. There's 160 units, and that rounds out to a density of 18.05 units per acre which is within the allowable range for the project. There's 21 buildings that are 3 stories. There is a clubhouse also located in the center of the project, and the floor plans ranging from 1120 square feet to 1354 square feet. There were 2-bedroom and 3-bedroom units. Access is provided off of Harbison Drive, and then there is secondary emergency vehicle access on Ulatis Drive. The project this time is proposing a farmhouse architectural theme, and there are exceptions that the applicant is requesting, and those exceptions are to parking and setback standards for the building. This map shows the location of the project itself. Buildings are around the perimeter of the site. On the inside of the site itself, there is the clubhouse here. Again, that access being provided off of Harbison Drive. That is secondary emergency vehicle access being provided off of Ulatis Drive. As a component of this project, the applicant will be dedicating a portion of the project site for an eventual widening of Ulatis for a right turn lane dedication that will be provided at some point in the future. A little bit about the architecture. The plans shown here show the 3-story element with the ground floor being used for the garages. The second and third story floors being used for the units. Exterior materials are primarily composed of vertical board and batten siding with horizontal lap siding. The apartment buildings will have composite shingle roofing. The color tones are primarily gray and white. Some more of the pictures showing the other color schemes for the buildings with accent colors on the doors themselves. This is another view of the proposed buildings that they're looking at constructing at the site. And then the clubhouse too. The additional stone veneer being provided by the applicant on this clubhouse building is shown there. And that stone veneer will be also carried over onto the masonry wall pilasters that are being provided on the perimeter of the project site. So as Director Buderi had indicated, there is an additional correspondence provided by the applicant, communication about condition number 22, which it's coming from Public Works, and it's a condition that requires the applicant to annex into landscape lighting and maintenance districts for the project. And that condition looks like this, indicated on the table: the Hawkins Neighborhood Park, which is the district number 21, Allison Ulatis Landscaping District, which is number 61, and then Allison Ulatis Lighting District, which is 71. The contribution by the applicant's project to the city maintenance of these particular areas are indicated in the second column with a total annual contribution of $41,000. I would note that Allison, that the property is already annexed into the Allison Ulatis Landscaping and Lighting District. So really, our discussion primarily focuses on the applicant's objection to annexing into the Hawkins Neighborhood Park. So at this point, we thought it might be a good idea to kind of talk about what are maintenance districts and why are they required. So the purpose of these maintenance districts are to provide funding for the development's proportionate share of the cost of the maintenance for these areas, such as a neighborhood park that would serve the project, or that public landscaping that's along the street or within the medians surrounding the streets, but also the public lighting that would benefit the residents that are in that location. Currently, the city has 165 different lighting, landscaping, and maintenance districts throughout. And really, the requirement for this project to annex in within those districts comes from the general plan, specifically within the Parks and Recreation elements. There's policy PR-P2.8, which says that the city is obligated to ensure that all new residential developments will either annex into or set up a new park maintenance district in accordance with the Landscaping and Lighting Act of 1972. We also have the municipal code in chapter 14.12.179, which requires new residential developments to establish a landscaping and lighting maintenance district to fund the development's proportionate share of the cost of the maintenance of neighborhood parks. So city staff worked together to put together this map to kind of depict exactly what we're talking about. So Hawkins Park is located in the middle of the map. There is a 1/2 mile radius, and the 1/2 mile radius is kind of intended to show what's the typical walking distance that an individual might take to get to a park. The properties that are located in blue are multifamily developments that are already annexed into this District 21 for the payment contribution to Hawkins Park maintenance. There are a couple of outliers. Saratoga Senior Apartments is excluded because it's a senior project. The municipal code allows the decision maker for that particular project and any senior projects to opt out of payment into those parks. The only unusual one is the Casa de Vista Apartments. Wasn't required to annex in. There was a bit of an oversight on this one. We didn't realize that multifamily developments were required to annex into these parks. So that one, Casa de Vista is not in District 21. So one of the things that the applicant had indicated was that it wasn't necessary to annex into the Hawkins Park District because it was over a mile away. So we drafted up this map to kind of show where Hawkins Park was in proximity to the project. As you can see in project site with the red boundary, is within that 1/2 mile radius. In addition, we wanted to point out that there is a bike path that an existing bike path that provides direct access to the project site to Hawkins Park. So likely, because it's the closest in proximity, residents within that location would likely walk to Hawkins Park to use it. So there's justification there for annexing the property into that maintenance district for its fair share contribution for its future residents that would likely use that park. There were some additional questions that were asked by commissioners about this maintenance districts, in particular Hawkins Park. And so we worked with Public Works to get some of those questions answered. And so the additional facts that we had behind was that there is a 3% maximum annual adjustment that's imposed for this district. 10% of the contributions used for maintenance is to help fund any maintenance from any outside users. So anybody that's outside of the district that might see Hawkins Park as a nice place to go to and use it. So 10% of the contributions provided by those properties that are annexed into it, paying into it, is used to fund that use. If there's any surplus that's carried, that is at the end of the year, that's carried over to the next year. And if there is any surplus, it would decrease the cost for that district unless there is a specific maintenance project that would exceed the annual district cost. And so if there is any surplus, it would likely be used to pay for that maintenance. So getting back to the project itself, as indicated in our findings and our staff reports, staff supports the project because it meets the required findings. It also complies with the general plan and zoning with those exceptions to development standards that are allowed through the plan development application. It complies with development standards, again, with exceptions to development standards. It meets the findings for being able to grant those exceptions to the parking standards and also the building setbacks. Very importantly, it does provide more housing, especially in 2 and 3 bedroom units. The city is in need of 3 bedroom units. It also has a very good design, and then it's located in really close proximity to transit, shopping, and jobs. So with that analysis and what's described in our staff report and the findings, staff does have a recommendation for the Planning Commission, and that is by simple motion to approve the resolution to reaffirm the general plan environmental impact report, and also approve the plan development for the Harbison Townhomes subject to the conditions of approval. That is my presentation. We do have city staff available on this meeting. The Public Works Department is here to help answer any questions, provide any feedback for the commission regarding the maintenance districts. I'm here to answer any questions.
Thank you, Albert. Before we go to the public hearing, I want to see if any members of the commission have questions for staff at this time. After the public hearing, we'll have an opportunity for comments, but right now we're just looking at clarifying questions. So if you have questions, now is the time, and I actually see Commissioner Alan Johnson has raised his hand, and followed by Chair Fortney. So Commissioner Alan Johnson, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. Albert, I just did a quick Google Maps and for directions from the site location to Hawkins Park, and it is over a mile by vehicles traveled. So I was just wondering, when we use the half-mile radius, is that factor in to how people are going to actually get to a park if they're going to use it?
It does, and the measurement of the half-mile radius is what's within reasonable driving distance, what's within a reasonable walking distance to get to a particular park, and the half-mile radius is that threshold, and so that's what we use when we're throwing out that buffer radius. It doesn't necessarily have to be based off of what a car vehicle would drive. It's just based off of that particular radius around the boundaries of the park.
Okay, thank you.
Vice Chair Fortney, and then after that, Commissioner Brett Johnson. Mr. Fortney, go ahead.
Yes, Albert. Because we've got a townhome product here, what measures are in place to prevent this from being converted into individual sales down the road 10 years from now?
Well, the townhome product, they're still apartments. The project is still an apartment project. So these are individual apartment units. I don't think that there is anything that would prevent the applicant from being able to go and make that change. I would defer to the applicant on what the intention is as to potentially making that change on there. And I think the applicant, Richard Alexander, is here to help provide and shed some light on that.
So,
okay, I'll wait for the applicant. I'll wait for the applicant to comment on that then. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Vice Chair. Commissioner Brent Johnson, it's your turn.
I have many questions associated with this, but I think some of them will be directed towards the commissioner comments at the end of our meeting, because they're not necessarily exclusive to this particular project. I did want to make a point of clarification and or seek staff's clarification. On your map, you show the Saratoga Senior Apartments as being excluded from this particular assessment. It may be in error because there are two tax parcels associated with this particular property, 1101 Burton Drive and 1151 Burton Drive. On 1101, there is no neighborhood park assessment. On 1151, which does cover Saratoga Senior Apartments, there is roughly almost $7,100 a month or a year of annual Hawkins neighborhood park assessments associated with that senior apartment project. So it is not excluded from this particular assessment as it's indicated on this map. And that's per the tax collector's website.
Staff, anything you wish to address on that at the moment?
Not at this time. Thank you for the clarification.
Thank you. Anything else, Commissioner Johnson?
Not yet, thanks.
Okay. And I don't see any other hands, though. Brett, I'll ask you to unraise your hand since it still shows that you're wishing to speak. There we go. And at this point, then, I will go and open the public hearing. Now, traditionally, we allow the applicant or the applicant's representative to speak first before we go to other members of the public. And so I see that Mr. Filippi, who's the applicant's engineer, is on, and I see a name, Richard, that I'm assuming is Mr. Alexander, the applicant. So at this point, I will go and give the applicant and the applicant's engineer a chance to speak. And then after that, I believe I saw Mr. Valdez showed an interest in speaking, but we'll start off with the applicant. So go ahead for the applicant side.
Yes, Commissioner, this is Rich Alexander representing Guardian Capital. The question was, is this ever going to be converted to individual townhomes? And the answer is no. And the reason that it will not be is that one, it's not its intent, and two, we designed it such that it would be cost prohibitive to do it. And it's what I mean by that. There are 21 separate buildings with 7 or 8 units in each building. But the sewer from the each unit or each building is one collective unit, so they're not individual. In order to be a condo, they have to be individual. The water is not individual, and the power that's coming in, once again, is not individual. So you have one water source to the site. On top of that, it is not designed to meet code as individual townhomes. So it is not designed to be future condos, and to convert it, our plan is always to hold it a minimum of 10 years. We jokingly say we hold it 10 years and 1 day for tax purposes, but it is designed to be apartments in perpetuity. If there are any questions that the commissioners might have of me, I'm available.
Mr. Alexander, this is Chair McCauley. I know you had sent a letter with some concerns about the conditions of approval. I see staff has addressed those, at least talked about them this evening. Are you satisfied? Do you still object to the conditions? I'd like to hear your perspective on that.
I've met with Albert and Public Works, and I think we have worked through all the conditions, and at this point, I am comfortable with them.
Okay, and for the members of the commission, when it does come time for us to take a motion, I want to make sure that I go back to staff and we know exactly which conditions we're talking about if there is a motion for approval. I see Vice Chair Fortney has his hand up. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think it's really not a question. It's more to let the applicant, discuss the project a little bit more in detail. When we met, you talked about having these units each having a small private backyard as well as a 2-car garage. Can you give us a little history on where this type of product may exist and if you're building it or not? Thank you.
Where it may exist as an apartment, I don't know. Long ago, far away in Roseville, we built this type of product as individual units and sold them. The backstory on this in Vacaville is that we built the product cross street Casa de Vista, as you know, now named Strata 1200. And in doing that, we have done many market studies with the people. The good news is, to give you an example of how many people we're talking about, Strata is a year old, or it's been a year since we started on it. It is complete to date, and it is right now at 97% occupied. So we've got 240 units over there, and we have surveyed each of the parties coming in. We started out working very heavily with the seniors that would come in and apply, and we would talk to them about the future Harbison project, and would they like to, and so forth and so on. Would they like a project like this? And they would love a project like that, but we come to find that unfortunately they could not afford a project like that. We did not have enough, and FPI, our market people, who studied the market very well and was looking for the something that we could hang our hat on to build the senior apartments that we wanted to do. They couldn't find it. Subsequently, in talking with the crowds that came in, they were asked the questions: what would they like in an apartment? And they wanted rear yards. The plan that you see up on your screen right now, all of the dark gray that's sort of checkered, is rear yards. Every unit has a rear yard, and I think that I submitted, but every unit has a 2-car garage. The end units are tandem, side by side, and the interior are one in front of the other. So you have every unit has 2 cars. This is what the people were looking for, and they wanted a yard. They wanted a yard so that they could privately, as they described it, take their dog out in the middle of the night, so that they could read outside and relax in the privacy of a small yard, and so that they could do, and a lot of them was so that they could work on their bicycles. They liked the idea of having a rear yard where they could go out in the back and work on their bike and so forth and so on. The bike riders, I was amazed at how many bike riders that you potentially have. So that's how that it came about, and why we left the seniors site. To let you also know, it was not an easy decision. We had spent in excess of $100,000 in civil design and well over $100,000 in architectural design for the senior project, and we had to throw all of that out and start over again, which was not easy to do. So it was not an easy decision. And we wanted to design, as we always do, something that will be a complement to the city. And we feel that we have done that, and something that will complement the people that are looking for 2 and 3 bedroom. We have no 1 bedrooms and no studios. The demand is there right now, very strong for 2 bedroom and 3 bedroom. I think a lot of it is, or some of it anyway, is due to COVID, because they're working at home. So you have 1 sleeping area and 2 offices, or 1 sleeping area and 1 office, and but there's a high demand for the 2 bedroom, 3 bedroom, and that's what we're accommodating.
Vice Chair, did that answer your questions?
Absolutely. Thank you very much.
I do see then, unless the applicant has final remarks, I do see several members of the public wish to participate. And so, Mr. Alexander, I'm going to go ahead and go over to other members of the public. I believe I see Roberto Valdez was the first one to have a hand up. And so you can go ahead and make your presentation. Again, we ask that you limit your comments to about 3 minutes, so that we can make sure we stay generally on schedule. But Mr. Valdez, go ahead.
Chair, there seems to be an issue with Mr. Valdez's speaking ability, so I think that there is a quick workaround to be able to allow him to talk if he's promoted to panelist. Otherwise, he might need to call in.
What I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the next speaker while Mr. Valdez is trying to get things set up on that. I see someone with the phone number of 211 as the last 3 digits. If the secretary would allow that to go ahead. And then after that, I see Wendy Brecken has raised her hand. But Caller with 211, go ahead.
Hi, my name's Alicia Minion, and I have some questions and a few comments. So I do support townhomes. I think that that's a type of housing that the city of Vacaville needs. But I do have some questions regarding this particular site. And so I was looking at the housing element report that's dated 2015 to 2023. The Allison Ulatis Priority Development Area, which was approved by ABAG, originally, these particular parcels that are under consideration tonight was dedicated for senior housing, and it was in a category of lower income households. So when you look at page 89 of the housing element report, it says that, you know, the intention is 177 units on the site. This is now 160, which I'm assuming is because you have the townhomes, you want them to have a bigger footprint or a bigger, I mean, they're just larger in size. And so my question is there an issue because what's being proposed today is inconsistent with the housing element report? Also, the housing element mentions that, you know, these particular sites were originally commercial office zoning, and then in 08, there was a residential overlay. In the housing element report, it shows 3 sample projects that were constructed on commercial office with residential overlays, and all 3 projects, 100% of the sample is all senior apartments. So I didn't have time to really do any research, but is there any particular restriction within our Muni Code that the ROCO should be with senior? Because I'd hate to create some kind of precedent, if that makes sense. In addition, I know that the applicant is saying, well, the seniors can't really afford it. Well, there's lots of seniors who can. And I would imagine that ABAG approved this development so that there's mixed housing to meet the needs of different demographics, such as seniors, or and that's why I think once you're inconsistent with prior approvals, I don't know that, you know, this should be, you know, we should maybe go back and research these inconsistencies. In addition, the housing element report indicated that the EIR identified this site as medium risk for liquefaction, and I was wondering what's being done to mitigate that risk. Also, in May of this year, the City Council approved that the traffic impact fee be reduced for this particular project, but it was conditioned upon that there would be 20.1 units be built per acre, and we've got, I think, around 18. So there's another inconsistency with that. So I started thinking, well, is the developer still going to get this reduction in the traffic impact fee despite they're not meeting that condition? Was the developer, did they receive development impact fee credits? And if so, what for, and what's the value of those credits?
And Ms. Minion, you're a bit over 3 minutes, so I'm going to ask you to wrap up fairly quickly.
Okay, and then lastly, the parking issue. This isn't a big city. These are big units. They need the cars, and I'm completely against the granting the parking exception, that waiver. And again, I'm concerned about setting precedents with regard to the parking. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Minion. I will ask staff to address those in whichever you think is the appropriate order.
All right. Commissioner or Chairperson, this is Fred Bouderi. I might be able to answer a couple of those questions. With regard to the housing element, no, it would not be inconsistent. This is shown as an opportunity site in the housing element for a variety of, it could be qualified for a variety of types of housing. So, for example, the description of the site contained in the housing element does note that there is, in general, in this area, a need for multifamily development of a type that would be suitable for a variety of housing needs. So seniors would certainly be one of those needs, but also family housing, and housing in close proximity to employment or services. So it is consistent with the housing element to use the site for multifamily housing. In particular, this project, one of its features that was identified, I think, in their application review was the fact that they are providing 3-bedroom units in the housing element. In one of the earlier sections before the section cited in the discussion, the housing element describes the multifamily apartment stock in the city of Vacaville being extremely short on apartments that provide adequate space for larger families. At the time of the writing of the housing element, just before its adoption in 2015, a very small percentage, I think on the order of 3 to 4% of the apartment units available in the city were sized of a size that could accommodate larger families. So this project does meet one of those identified needs. With regard to liquefaction, I don't believe this would be an issue for the project, since the project will be designed to meet building codes for the type of soil upon which the project is built. And I'm sure we could have the applicant's engineer discuss that, as well as we do have the city's building official present if there's any desire for more information on that. And with regard to any changes in the traffic impact fees, I'd have to take a look at the staff report. I don't believe there are credits offered, but I think this might be better for the Public Works staff to perhaps opine on.
Is there someone from Public Works staff then that is able to address that issue? Fred, while we go to other comments, I see someone from Public Works is just unmuted, so I will ask them to go ahead and speak.
So this is Tim Burke with the in Public Works, the Assistant Director. Along with the Strata project, the city has approved a slight reduction in our traffic impact fees for multifamily housing in close proximity to a transit center, similar to the one that is right next door to this project. So this project would be eligible for that traffic impact fee reduction. It's not officially a credit. It's just a reduction in the traffic impact fees because of the proximity to transit.
So that's based on proximity, not senior restriction, correct?
That's correct.
Thank you, Mr. Burt. There are other people whose hands are up, so I'm going to go ahead and go to the next person that shows on my list, which is Wendy Brecken. And after Ms. Brecken, we will go to Mr. Valdez. I'll point out, Ms. Minion, you still show on Zoom as having your hand up. So if you're done, I'd ask you to lower your hand. We'll now go on to Wendy Brecken.
Hello, this is Wendy Brecken. Thanks for the opportunity to talk. I'm concerned that in general projects tend to change from what is everybody's all excited about and accepting to kind of something completely different. And that's kind of what this project's doing. Start out, I think originally is 177 units with senior. It was going to be senior restricted housing, which means that I think it would have elements designed into the apartments specifically for seniors and 98% parking. And then in March of this year, 168 units. So it got, all the units got bigger, but it's still senior housing. And the Planning Commission reaffirmed that EIR. And that's one of my questions. I don't know what that means to reaffirm an EIR. And then now it's going to 160 units, and it's too expensive for senior housing. So the housing element shows the site as low income, and now it's not. It was originally going to be senior housing, and now it's not. How many more times is this project going to change? And has this project gone far beyond where it should go? Because many seniors in Vacaville need housing, and I had to walk the district because I ran for city council, and I heard time and time again, we need senior housing, we need affordable senior housing. It's just not here. So that's basically my question. Why are we reaffirming the EIR? What does that mean? And what is going on with these project changes?
Thank you, Ms. Brecken. Ms. Dario, again, I'll turn this to you for any staff comments you would have first on the environmental question. And then I don't know if there's somebody from housing or if there's any reports you can refer to regarding senior need. And do we have city programs to try and meet that? Do we rely on the market? Do we try and push the market? Any direction you can give us on that?
Yes. So the reference to reaffirming an environmental impact report. So the environmental impact report is a type of report required by the California Environmental Quality Act. It is an informational document that describes the physical impacts to the environment from potential projects. So in the case of, and the Environmental Quality Act is referred to as CEQA for short. CEQA allows an environmental impact report to be used for multiple projects, as long as the environmental effects described from the development are consistent and adequately described in the environmental impact report. So when the staff receive a development project application, they will evaluate a number of environmental impact categories by looking at the original EIR, the environmental impact report done for the site, and assess whether the revised project presents any new environmental impacts. And if not, CEQA allows the city to basically readopt the same environmental report to describe the environmental impacts of developing the site again. So here it's very common in CEQA for an environmental impact report to be used to describe the impacts of a revised project on the same piece of property that the original report described, as long as there are no new environmental impacts that are shown. So in this case, the staff's analysis, which is included in the staff report, indicated that there were no new environmental effects to be addressed, thus the certification, the reaffirmation of the previously adopted environmental report.
And very quickly, before you go into anything further, one of the things I want to make sure we're staying within the lanes of what the Planning Commission can consider, which is the item that's before us and its consistency with the development code. So while there may be an interesting issue for us on senior housing, I don't want to direct you to get kind of outside of what we're allowed to be considering tonight. So, is there an issue with consistency with housing element, the priority development area, the policy plan, those sorts of code issues? And then maybe later on, we can set up a more detailed discussion of senior housing, how we're meeting it and how the Planning Commission fills in that role. But just before we go into anything else, let's just make sure we stay within what the council has authorized us to deal with tonight. So sorry for the interruption, but go ahead.
Oh, thank you very much. So, and with regard to the type of housing, so the city's land use and development code and the adopted zoning and policy plan land use designations for the site do allow a variety of housing types. In this case, the applicant has submitted an application for a plan that is consistent with the uses allowed, and the project is consistent with those and is not in conflict with the housing element.
Fred, when does the next housing element come in front of, I assume, through the Planning Commission and on to the City Council?
Okay. The next housing element is scheduled for starting very soon, and the city must have its next housing element adopted and certified by the year 2023.
Okay, so that may be something that the commission has further discussions of in the future. Thank you. I'm going to go down the list of other participants. I see Mr. Valdez and then Mr. Filippi and then Elisa DeCaro. So we'll handle things in that order. Mr. Valdez, hopefully we have connection with you this time and you can proceed.
Chair, there still seems to be an issue with this connection. I'm going to attempt to promote the panelist to see if it allows us to unmute his connection.
Okay, Albert, I appreciate the work you're doing to make that happen. In the meantime, Mr. Filippi has the floor.
There we go. Mr. Chairman, thank you for the opportunity. How are you, sir?
Doing well, Mr. Filippi. You can proceed.
Yes, quickly, two things. There was a question regarding liquefaction. I thought I would address that by the fact that we had a soils report done on the property and no liquefaction characteristics were identified. Quite candidly, in the city of Vacaville, I'm not aware of any properties that meet that unique characteristics of concern. But nevertheless, we did check for that, and that was not found on the property. Number two, there was some discussion about developer changes. As Mr. Alexander indicated in his remarks, this is not a change that's being made lightly. There were significant dollars expended in design for the first project that was approved by the Planning Commission. It was simply found to not be workable, and hence we're reapplying for changes to that application. So it's important to understand that it is an expensive process. There were fees to reapply. There are fees on the original design. So these are not decisions that are made willy-nilly without a lot of thought and market analysis. So those are the two quick comments I wanted to add. Happy to answer any other questions from the engineering perspective. We are the civil engineers on the project. And one last thought I would make, and to echo what Mr. Alexander said, the design of these buildings is being set up so that they would not be able to be sold individually in the future. So this is truly an apartment project in every way, shape, and form. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Filippi. And if there's any engineering questions from the commission later on, I appreciate your being available. The next person I see on the list is Elisa DeCaro. Go ahead with your comments or questions.
Can you hear me?
We can hear you. Go ahead.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you for taking my question. I am not as familiar with this project. I generally try to read through the EIRs. But the first question that comes to mind is senior housing is typically no more than 2 people living in a home. And people who don't typically drive, who are more reliant on the public transportation. But you've increased the population of this development to families who have multiple cars and multiple family members. And my main question is specifically in regards to the children. What school have they been allocated to attend? Because all of the schools in Vacaville are impacted. And at the time this environmental impact report would have been written, it would have been written when classroom sizes could be larger. But now because of the pandemic and social distancing, that's not feasible or possible for the long term. So I would think that it would not fit the same blueprint as the original environmental impact report. And I would respectfully request that that be readdressed.
Mr. Videri,
that's my question.
And thank you for the question. Mr. Baderi, anything that you wish to address regarding school capacity and assignment?
I do not know which school students from this particular property would be assigned. So I cannot answer that. It would be a question the school district would have to help us with. However, the population projections done for the city's environmental impact report would still be within the range that this project falls within, and therefore this potential for generating student population would not be different from what the city analyzed in its environmental impact report.
Ms. Baderi, looking at the minutes from the time when this project was considered back in March, it looks like there was some discussion regarding school fees and that they may be reduced for a senior project. So, and I go, that's handled by the school district, but at least my assumption would be that if this project is no longer senior restricted, it would be dealing with full school impact fees rather than anything that was senior restricted. Is that your understanding also?
That is my understanding. And Albert, I don't know if you can help us if you had any specific contacts from the district on this particular project, but normally that's correct. If it's not a senior restricted, they would pay the standard school impact fees.
Sure. Thank you. And I can add some additional clarification on how the process works for working with the school district. So when these projects come through our department, the plans and the information that's been provided by the developer gets routed out to various different departments and also agencies. One of those agencies being the Vacaville Unified School District. And our representative that attends our meetings and that reviews these projects did not indicate any problems with the population from this project. Another point of clarification that I wanted to add on the evaluation of development at the site for the environmental impact report. Usually what occurs for these EIRs is that they evaluate the maximum development potential that could occur on this site. In this particular case, having the residential overlay, the development density that could be developed at the site has a range between 8 units per acre to 24 units per acre. So the maximum population that could be developed that would be consistent with the general plan EIR could go up to 24 units per acre. But for this particular project, the development proposal is only at 18.05 units per acre, so substantially lower than what could be allowed at the site and still be consistent with the general plan EIR.
Thank you for that. I'm going to ask, were you able to make connections with Mr. Valdez, because I don't see him on the list right now.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Are you speaking through the phone connection?
I figured it out.
Okay.
I learned the hard way. Pardon me. Anyway, can I start?
Yes, go ahead with your comments or questions, sir.
Okay. Again, thank you for giving me the opportunity to respond to this project. I have been eyeing this project for a long time. I am aware of what it was before. I've been here 30 years, and I know what that area was before. I also have seen a lot of changes in that area and the impact. My concerns with this project, sir, commissioners, Mr. McCauley, and commissioners and public, is that and staff that this I'm not convinced that that it won't have a tremendous traffic congestion problem. If I go there every day, the library, that area, and I'm very familiar, and I'm sure you can go to the shopping center, that area. Both Harbison, Uladas, and Allison Road, they're Uladas Drive and Harbison Drive, they're always extremely heavily used. There's a lot of traffic there. What I see happening with this project, because you also have the transportation center, even though you made amends to kind of separate the project from the transportation center, and there's only 2 areas that you can get out on Harbison Drive and Uladas Drive. Those two streets alone, I can tell you, it's going to make the area very congested. And I might say too, as evidence of what your picture that you have there of this project in this presentation is very indicative of what kind of traffic you can expect. If you look on the left side, you see a lot of cars parked. That should tell you per se that there's a lot of people go down there for shopping, there's a school there across the street. Now you've got another big project over there already built, the Strata project. You know, I don't see, you know, why you even would build this project there. You know, I find it hard to believe, you know, I would rather see a park or something else that something can happen for the community, for the benefit of the. The other question, the other concern I have is also the level of noise. As I said to you earlier, just now, that area is near that transportation. There are always not only one or two buses, there's a whole fleet of buses, lane number, bus number 5, 40, you name it. They all converge on that transportation project. And so I see that there's also going to be issue about noise problem. I don't see how the people who are going to be living there or why they wouldn't want to live there are they're going to be bombarded by all the noise from the traffic alone, let alone with the congestion and all. So that is my concern, you know, that in terms of this project, I don't when I talked to Mr. Albert and he was very helpful again. I appreciate your amenities there, time. You know, this what is it? He told me that that noise was not a problem. I disagree with that. I also disagree with the fact that the traffic congestion is being downplayed to accommodate this project. So that is my concern. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Valdez, and thank you for your persistence in hanging with us until we got the opportunity to get
Thank
you
you
in.
again for being accommodated.
I will ask Albert, is there any special noise concerns here compared to the city standard? Is there a masonry wall between the project and the transit center? Anything on noise that you or Mr. Baderi wishes to discuss with us?
Yes, certainly. I can add some clarification on both of those elements, the noise and the transportation. Regarding the noise, the previous development project had prepared a noise assessment for development at this project site. And what it found was there would be noise generated from traffic along Ulatis and Harbison. But if you're 50 feet off the center line of the project, which is pretty much at the sidewalk, you're getting levels that are slightly above what's the maximum allowable noise permitted by the municipal code for exterior noise levels. For reference, the project buildings are 75 feet away from the center line of the project. So 25 feet additional away from the transportation noise sources that are occurring on Ulatis Drive. In addition to, so based off of that analysis of the buildings being farther away than what was identified as a potential location in proximity to the roadway, the buildings are far enough away, but the applicant has gone one step further to help mitigate any noise, and that is that along Ulatis Drive, the applicant is proposing to install a masonry wall that will provide for additional noise attenuation along Ulatis Drive. Along Harbison, the applicant's proposing a 50-50 wall. Half of it would be masonry and the top half would be some type of decorative tubular steel design. And so with those particular additions added to the project, transportation noise sources along Ulatis and Harbison are expected to be not impactful. The applicant will be providing air conditioning for these units, so residents will have the ability to close their windows if there is noise from transportation or other activity outside. Along the transit center, the bus noise, I think, was one of the comments that we heard. Along the transit center, there is an existing masonry wall that is there. There is one point of connection that's being provided by the applicant for pedestrian only, though, but the rest of the wall will remain unchanged. So that masonry wall itself will also provide some noise attenuation for those backyards. And based off the masonry wall additions for the project that would normally be required for a project like this, we found that it wouldn't be a problem for the project. Regarding the traffic levels, again, the reference to environmental impacts for transportation is the EIR, and the type of development that was analyzed for this is the maximum density range of 24 units per acre. And based off of that, the road capacities are designed. And so for Ulatis Drive and Harbison Drive, that's what's there now, is what's able to accommodate the type of development surrounding the project site. And also with the project site, again, the project coming in substantially less than what the maximum development potential could be accommodated at the site and still be consistent with the general plan. As far as the parking that appears to be at the Ulatis Community Center, this is a one-time shot that occurred from 2019. It is a Ulatis Community Center, so they are known to hold events at that location. And then one final point on the transportation component. Again, when we send these project plans out to different representatives in different districts, one of those districts is the Traffic Engineering Division within Public Works, and they evaluated this project and didn't find any issues with the anticipated population and traffic that would be coming from this project on those roadways.
Thank you, Albert. And looking at that picture, I would love to see a time when the Ulatis Center is filled with people able to go to events there. I think that's something we would all like. I'm going to go to the secretary because I do not see any other hands raised for members of the public. Is there anyone on the phone who is seeking to address the commission with questions or comments?
I do not see anyone.
That being the case, I'm going to go ahead and close the public hearing and thank everyone who has called in with the questions and comments. And we'll now go back to the commission for questions and comments. And Commissioner Brett Johnson, you'd indicated earlier that you had things that you wish to bring up. So I'm going to give you the floor for the beginning of this, if you would like.
I appreciate that. It's actually not pertinent to the particular project, so I'll reserve it for the end of the meeting and commissioner comments. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for being clear on that. Commissioner Beaumont, your hand is raised. Go ahead.
Yeah, the gate that goes into the transit center, Albert, is that going to be open to everyone, or are the residents going to have a locked gate that they can get in and out of and not allow transients to come into the project that way?
I'll defer to the applicant who's going to be more familiar with how that's going to work.
Mr. Alexander and Mr. Filippi, would either of you be able to talk about the gate?
There you go. Yes, the gate is not open to the public. It is strictly open to the complex, and is what we try and run as a very secure complex for the protection of the people. So no, it is strictly for the apartment dwellers.
Thank you for your answer. Commissioner Beaumont, did that answer your question?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Alexander.
And Commissioner Aldrich, I see your hand raised. Go ahead.
Okay, can you hear me?
We can hear you. Go ahead, Jen.
Okay, thank you. I have a couple of questions and then I have some comments. When Mr. Alexander and I spoke, I don't think we discussed, is this a gated community?
Yes, it is a gated community.
And does it have a concierge?
Yes, it does have concierge services.
Thank you. Well, then I would like to make some comments. I think it really fits a need we have here in Vacaville. I can't think of any apartments that are 2 and 3 bedrooms of this quality with enclosed garages. And I'm quite sure that there's a need for this in the city, especially with our biotech people coming and a number of other jobs coming to the area. I love the location and I especially like the architecture. I think it's Vacaville friendly, may I say. The location with the proximity to the transportation center, to shopping, to dining is certainly an advantage and will cut down on a lot of traffic. And so I'm thoroughly in favor of the project. I think it's a great addition to Vacaville.
Thank you, Commissioner Aldrich. And I know some of the things you spoke in favor of the project as far as higher density at this location next to transit and shopping and jobs is one of the things that I think is also an advantage to the project. Commissioner Aldridge, your hand is still raised. If you're done, go ahead and put the hand down.
I'm new to this, so let me figure out how to unraise it.
It's okay. I will ask, are there other commissioners that have questions or comments at this time? Seeing none, since Commissioner Aldridge's hand is still raised.
I know I lowered it.
In favor of the project, I will ask, would you like to make a motion on the project, Commissioner Aldridge?
I absolutely would like to move that this project be approved.
Okay.
Motion and reaffirm the general plan environmental impact report and approve the plan development for the Harbison townhomes, subject to the conditions of approval.
And I would make note that that is the conditions of approval as discussed this evening. Staff, are there any changes on those conditions compared to what was in the staff report that we need to make note of?
There should be no changes to the conditions. I believe the staff has been able to work with the applicant on clarifying a lot of the conditions that there are some standard conditions that are not applicable. So there should be no revisions to those conditions as shown in the staff report.
Okay, thank you. We have a motion made by Commissioner Aldridge. Would anyone like to second that motion?
Alan Johnson.
Okay, so we have a motion by Aldridge, a second by Alan Johnson, and I will ask the secretary to call the roll.
Commissioners Aldridge,
Yes.
Beaumont,
Yes.
Alan Johnson,
Aye.
Brett Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner Lightfoot,
Aye.
Vice Chair Fortney,
Yes.
Chair McCauley.
Aye. So unanimous vote in favor, and I will ask Mr. Baderi for the disposition.
Thank you. The Planning Commission's action on this item is final unless an appeal is filed to City Council within 10 days.
Okay, thank you very much. That concludes item 7, public hearings. Item 8 is business items. Number 8A is the downtown specific plan. Mr. Baderi, who will be making the presentation? Whoever it is, they should proceed.
Very good. I'll do the update on that one, and no lengthy slide presentation tonight on this one. You do see on the screen there the cover for the downtown parking analysis and policy strategy. So tonight's discussion is to update the commission on the status of a few features in the downtown plan and to encourage continued involvement by all interested parties out there in the community. The first item I'll mention is the completion of the downtown parking strategy, parking analysis and policy strategy. So this is an item that has had been the subject of a few public meetings for the downtown specific plan project, parking being an important issue related to downtown development and revitalization. So the purpose of tonight's update is simply to advise the commission and the public that the final version of the parking analysis and policy strategy has been completed. It has been placed on the downtown specific plan website, which is on the Let's Talk Vacaville website. And we encourage folks to review the report, to take a look at the parking strategy. The parking strategy will be used to inform the final contents of the downtown specific plan related to parking. So actions and strategies to address issues related to parking would be based on this. And let's see, let's take a look, maybe one or two more slides to give people an idea. So the downtown parking analysis and strategy will include in it detailed design recommendations for various parking lots within the downtown public parking lots. And this may be of interest because many of the comments the city staff have received as we've gone through this process so far have been related to how adjacent businesses relate to the location and availability and design of parking lots within the downtown. And so this the report that is now available to the public online documents the draft strategies for addressing some of the comments that we've received from folks, and as I said, informing final recommendations that would go into the specific plan document later this year, or excuse me, later next year. And maybe we can go back to the cover on that one as a nice background. The other item I wanted to report to the Planning Commission is that you've reviewed a couple of times the draft residential and mixed use prototypes. So these were potential design configurations for different types of residential uses that could be included in the downtown area. So the city staff and the consultant team have been continuing to work on these prototypes specifically to have them analyzed by the project economist team with regard to the potential feasibility of constructing the types of housing you saw in images that were presented to you, I believe, in October. So the fiscal and feasibility analysis for the prototypes is intended to then take those housing types and analyze the city's development standards and other development strategies to ensure that we then craft land use regulations that will hopefully make it more feasible for those housing types to be constructed, analyzing the potential cost and business constraints that might face a person who wishes to develop housing, and trying to develop land use development standards and policies that would help incentivize and make that housing more feasible. So we're currently working on that. We don't have a draft analysis for you yet, but we wanted to report on that to you to let you know that work is underway. And the third item is simply to report to the Planning Commission that last week or the week before, the community development staff project manager Tyra Hayes did do a presentation to the Parks and Recreation Commission on the downtown specific plan, focusing a little bit more on the park and open space designs and concepts that have been included in some of the draft strategies for the streetscape design plan that you reviewed earlier this year, and discussed with them the potential for other features in the downtown plan, such as opportunities for public art, methods to include to incentivize or encourage public art, identifying streetscape design items, and talking about the relationship of city park and recreation facilities to the overall development of the downtown. So as we proceed with development of the downtown specific plan, we will be expecting to return to the Parks and Recreation Commission to ensure that their ideas and abilities to review the project from the perspective of a commission who oversees the city's parks and recreation facilities can be taken into account as we come up with the final development strategies and programs for the downtown plan. So that concludes the comments we had for you on the downtown specific plan this evening. We'd be happy to take any additional suggestions, any issues that the commission would like us to look into further. We're hoping to come back to you every month with a status report on our activities related to completing the plan.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Baderi. I do see the Commissioner Alan Johnson has his hands raised. Go ahead, Mr. Johnson.
Thank you very much, Chair. Mr. Baderi, we received 2 late communications dated both today from Solano County Genealogical Society, as well as the Vacaville Heritage Council, specific to the old building. I think it was called the Vacaville Town Hall, or the old Town Hall.
Correct.
I didn't see any information in our staff report regarding this item about that issue. Is this mistimed communication, or is this related to what we're talking about?
It is very timely, and thank you for raising that. I apologize to the two groups who sent in letters. I forgot to mention that. So one additional item to mention is that we have received the correspondence that you received today, and very important items that they've noticed, and we really appreciate the fact that there's been a very careful review of the downtown streetscape design and initial existing conditions findings from the specific plan studies. So the information is extremely timely, very helpful to us as we take a look at areas where we may have overlooked something, topics that we may not have heard as much about up to this point, versus other issues that have maybe been more at the forefront of the community's discussion on the downtown specific plan. So no, that information is very timely. The staff have been in communication with the Historical Society after receipt of the letter to advise that we've received the information and appreciate very much, and we'll be expecting to work with them more closely than from this point on to ensure that the items they've raised in the comments are addressed as we go forward with the plan. The plan does intend to look at the city's current historic preservation policies, which affect portions of the downtown and certain properties. And so anyway, thank you very much for reminding me of that. And we do appreciate receiving that type of input. I would also mention for anyone listening who has a similar interest, whether it's a particular topic area or just in general related to the downtown development program, it is never too late to send us information to help guide us as we try to develop policies and strategies for the ultimate completed plan. So we do appreciate that.
Partners.
Did that answer your question?
Yes, it did. Thank you very much.
And Mr. Baderi, I will note one of my little pet peeves in the past has been some of the pictures we have don't appear to have been from Vacaville. The one we have clearly is, though probably not at the noon hour because there appear to be parking spaces in the downtown area. So there is that little change, but I'm glad it's of our downtown area. Do we have other commissioners that have questions for staff or comments to make right now before I go to the public? Not seeing any hands that are up, I'll go ahead because we do ask members of the public to participate. I see Mr. Valdez has his hand up again, and whether you can comment through here or for the phone link, and Roberto's hand just disappeared. Do we have an opportunity? Go ahead, Mr. Valdez.
Okay, I'm sorry. I don't mean to interrupt your speech there, Mr. Macaulay. Anyway, I'm trying to navigate this new technology. Bear with me. But I just want to say that I did read that letter from the Vacaville Heritage Council. And let me tell you, I have seen them over the years, and I'm very pleased, very happy that that they've gotten involved in this specific plan and that you've included them, because they are a wonderful resource. And I can tell you for a fact, over the years, and I know people that are there now, and I know the people that were there before, Mr. Bob Allen, I'm sure you recall, and Mr. Bowden, James Bowden, Jim Bowden. Anyway, it is sad that they're not here with us, but I will say to you, I'm glad to see that they are giving you input, and I hope you continue to involve them and they stay involved, because we not only need to know where we're going, but we need to, more important, know where we've been, so that when we make the decisions today or tomorrow, whatever, that we take the right direction that's going to benefit the entire community, and especially the Vacaville downtown area. To me, that's a historic area. It is, to me, just as important as you know, from my years past, Lagoon Valley for me. But I just want to say thank you for, and I'm happy to have them hear that they're involved. And it was a wonderful letter that Mr. Doug Rogers wrote to you. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for your comments. I don't see any other hands raised. Madam Secretary, are there any other members of the public that are seeking to speak? I do see one of our commissioners wants to comment, but I'll go with the public first. Do we have any other members of the public that are seeking to address the commission?
I see no members of the public.
Commissioner Beaumont, did you have something for Mr. Valdez, or should I wait until I close the public comment period?
No, this is for Fred about the parking analysis. It's just a little irritant to me that the Hickory lot is still part of the downtown parking analysis. I see no benefit that the Hickory lot brings to the downtown parking. It's going to be many years before it's connected well enough to use. And I think it just inflates the parking numbers that we really don't have for people who want to park downtown. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Beaumont. Fred, before you go forward, since I have not yet closed the public comment period and Elisa DeCaro has raised her hand, so I'm going to go ahead and allow that comment to go ahead. So go ahead, Ms. DeCaro.
Thank you. Oh, can you? Okay, I can never tell if my microphone.
We can hear you. Go ahead.
Okay, good. Thank you. The Historic District is very close to my heart, as are all of the historical organizations that share the space at the Old Town Hall. And one of the things that I just really want to emphasize coming out of the letter that was sent is that the Historic District should be sacred and protected. And in reading all of the documents, it seems like that has been overlooked. So I just want to reiterate our request that in addition to all of the public input and the input of consultants, that particularly for the Historic District, it incorporates someone who is formally trained on historic preservation and how that relates to CEQA.
Okay.
And that's all I have to say.
Very good.
Okay, Mr. Baderi, anything that you want to do in a reply to that, or simple note?
Oh, well, we appreciate that comment. That I really do, and yes, the team, the consultant team does include trained persons trained in historic preservation. But I really do appreciate the comment, because we do need to make sure we're focusing on this topic. The downtown, as Mr. Valdez said, is an extremely important part of the city's heritage and history. So much appreciated.
Roberto, you didn't use up all of your time, but there's somebody else ahead of you, and then I'll come back and see if you have any other comment. There's somebody with a phone number that ends in 607. Go ahead and address the commission as you desire.
Hello, Commissioner, can you hear me?
We can hear you. Go ahead. And if you'd identify yourself for the record, we'd appreciate that.
Yes, I'm Doug Rogers, the president of the Vacaville Heritage Council. I'd like to thank you for the opportunity that we had to send a corresponding letter to the commission to not only change the name of our organization to enlighten you folks and educate you folks on what the users of the Old Town Hall brings not only to the citizens of Vacaville, but to the citizens of Solano County and even past citizens who've moved away and we count on as clients for information. So thank you for the opportunity to allow us to clarify what we feel is very important, not only to Vacaville, but also Solano County.
And thank you both for your participation tonight. Anything else you want to add, since you still got some time, or leave it at that? I'm not going to force you to say more if you don't want to.
Nope, that's fine. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Great. Thank you for your participation. I see Mr. Valdez's hand has disappeared from the list. Mr. Rogers, your hand is still raised as if you wish to speak. And I see a couple of people are trying to come in for a second time. I'm going to make this fairly quick. First, is Mr. Valdez on the line?
Yes.
Okay, you got about a minute of your time left, Roberto. Go ahead.
All I need.
Go ahead.
Thank you again for allowing me to speak again. I respect your protocol and the meetings, but I just want to say, if I can emphasize, and I heard something about there was something in the letter about art or something that I either recall or conversations today. I hope that the city is focused on bringing art downtown, maybe murals downtown. I saw a lot of buildings again in your picture of the downtown area on Merchant and Dubbin Street. Particular. There's a lot of buildings that have just blank walls. I think it would look great to encourage the local artists or the merchants there to start putting murals like they've done in a lot of cities. It will help our city. It will make it a healthier city, and it will also, I think so. Might even reduce crime. Who knows what the benefits come back. But I think the art is the way to go to not just historic, but also art. And we have a lot of good artists in our city, in our town. I know them. I know the people from the Vacaville Art League. I know other people, volunteers from the senior center. I'm part of that, and there's a lot of other good artists in museums. So there's no reason, no excuse why we can't have more art downtown. And I hope the city devotes funds to that to encourage more downtown, especially your art commission. Thank you.
Thank you, Rivera, and you've certainly used your minute on stuff. I do want to make sure we stay within the general time on stuff. So thank you for your comment on art. And Ms. Vaccaro, you also had about a minute left. So if you have more to say, you've got about a minute to do it. Go ahead. Elisa Vaccaro, you have the floor at the moment.
Okay, thank you. No, I don't really have anything additional to add, except that I do truly believe that what we've discussed here and what was contained in our letter actually impacts one of the agenda items further down. And again, historic downtown is sacred and needs to be protected at all costs. And that's all I have to say. So thank you.
Looks like I was talking to a muted microphone. I'm going to go ahead and close the public comment period at this point and return things to the commission. We do not have any formal action to take, but I'd like to see if any commissioners have follow-up questions or comments at this time. And I don't see any. Mr. Baderi, I know you said you expect to be coming back to us on a pretty regular basis as this plan makes its way towards a final version. And so we will look forward to that, including updates on how each of the items we discussed this evening is being handled. And that concludes item 8, which is business in front of the commission. We'll now go on to item 9, which is status report on development and major projects, starting with 9A, current planning. And it looks like Albert will be making our presentation on that. Go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. I am here to provide the Commission with the activity report for current planning during the month of November. The first project that we received in November was the Harbison Townhomes, which is the item that was voted on by the Commission tonight. I want to thank staff for their diligent work on this particular project. This one made its way from the time it was submitted to the time it made it before the Planning Commission in 35 days. So that's, I think, a pretty big testament on city staff's work to try and help these projects move along, but also to work with the applicant and also the applicant's efforts to try and work with staff too. So that was one of the projects that we received in November. We also received a new industrial building project called Conco. It's a 415,000 square foot industrial building on 20 acres of land. It's located on Eubanks Drive, south of Midway Road. The site plan has a 6,000 square foot office space, and the rest of the 409,000 square feet is for the industrial portion. Another project that we received is a conditional use permit request to demolish the former Applebee's building and construct a new 3,200 square foot drive-through restaurant for Raising Cane's Chicken Fingers. And that is at 160 Nut Tree Road. Another, the last project that,
I'm gonna stop you and say, I couldn't understand, you said demolish the former which building?
Applebee's building.
Thank you. Go ahead.
The last project that we received in November is Premier RV Storage. That is a design review request to construct a new private parking lot on a 1.3 acre parcel that's located on Quinn Road. It's abutting the existing Camping World facility. One project we approved in November is for the ranch site work. That is a design review request that was approved by the Director of Community Development. And it was primarily to perform on-site improvements at Alamo Plaza, located at 806 through 904 Alamo Drive. And the improvements were primarily about reducing parking by 5% to accommodate outdoor dining, with some additional new landscaping, lighting, fencing, and painting. During November, we're still getting a lot of home-based business requests. We received 19 requests and approved 40. And during November, we reviewed 52 building permit applications that required plan check review from the Planning Division. Those included plot plans for the new farmstead developments, as well as the Bristow and Oxford developments over in Brighton Landing and Cambridge. We also reviewed a storage facility for Lagoon Valley Self-Storage off of Cherry Glen Road and the Aviator Warehouse building. They're looking at doing some grading out there to start off their project. During November, we helped serve 84 development-related inquiries. That's it for current planning.
Any commissioner questions for Albert before we go on to advanced? Seeing none, let's go on to the advanced planning report.
Okay, and I'll give this report for advanced planning. You did receive the update there on the downtown specific plan, so that project is moving along. A lot of moving parts to it, and we heard about many of them this evening. So a lot of work going on for the downtown plan. The Green Tree project is still in the works. The applicants have funded the city's work on a number of background reports that will help inform the environmental impact report that would be prepared for their project. So those are still being into the development stage, so no findings to report and no changes to the status on that at this time. City staff are currently working with a consultant on an aviation analysis of the draft development code update. So the entire draft development code is on the city's website, Vacaville Code Up. And the draft code is being reviewed by the Solano County Airport Land Use Commission to ensure its consistency and compatibility with airport land use restrictions. And we're currently working with a consultant to finalize some analysis for the use by the Airport Land Use Commission. The advanced planning staff are working in tandem with current planning on reports that will help inform the development of a recreation master plan for the Rocky Hill Markham neighborhood area. So there are several open space recreation and park type projects that have been envisioned recently in that neighborhood. There are a number of state grant opportunities that are available to cities, and a team of city staff from the Community Development Department, the Housing Department, and the Park and Recreation Department are working on items related to that. In addition, the planning staff, the police department's youth outreach group, and the Public Works Department have been working on a plan to install lighting on at least a portion of the Rocky Hill Trail, which is a part of the open space area in the neighborhood. And this is following the receipt by the police department of a Safe Routes to School grant that would help fund some lighting for that trail area. So a lot of work going on around that neighborhood involving several departments. The city advanced planning staff are currently working on a report called the Land Needs Inventory, and this is an evaluation of the amount of development activity that has occurred since the adoption of the general plan in late 2015. And it was one of the recommendations and actions coming out of the general plan, which was to do a 5-year inventory and update on the status of land development activities in the city as part of determining whether there are additional lands that could be designated for residential or other urban growth. And then finally, the advanced planning staff are working on a general plan amendment to address the new state standard for environmental impact reports related to traffic analysis, and that is called vehicle miles traveled. So projects are now evaluated on the basis of their impact on the potential to affect the vehicle miles traveled within a community. So there's a general plan amendment underway, actually led by the city's traffic engineering staff and public works in combination with community development staff to look at general plan policies related to vehicle miles traveled, to update the general plan for that, and to update and amend the city's energy and conservation action strategy, which is the city's climate action plan, trying to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. So both of those reports and projects working in tandem to come up with new strategies and techniques to reduce automobile travel, the need for automobile travel, and to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. And the Planning Commission will receive a report on this project at a special meeting on January 5th. So the special meeting will not be a meeting where you will be asked to take action on the vehicle miles traveled and energy and conservation strategy report. It will be a meeting that will bring you up to speed on the status of the city's analysis of those issues and the draft strategies and actions that could be incorporated into the general plan and the climate action plan targeting reducing those emissions. And we will do a second presentation in January to the City Council on the same topic, seeking public input at both meetings and Commission and Council comments as well. I think that covers the scope of advanced planning's work at this time.
Right, and Fred, I appreciate the heads up that the meeting on the 5th will be discussion but no action, because I think that's ultimately a very important item that we'll need plenty of time to digest before we do anything, and getting an informative presentation to start, I think, is important on that. Again, any questions for Mr. Baderi from other members of the commission? Not seeing any hands coming up. Will Mr. Salazar be making the presentation on the building division?
Yes, building division update for the month of November for the Planning Commission this meeting. Sorry, thank you. So our inspections in November were slightly under the same month last year, only by about 100. So we completed about 1,061 inspections with 3 inspectors. We issued 29 single-family homes final inspection approvals, which means they were granted occupancy in November. And we also, I think, granted the last occupancy permits for the Casa de Vista apartment complex that was discussed earlier in the meeting. Those inspection breakdowns were handled by basically 4 of us. I did a few more inspections last month than I normally do because people needed to take some time off. And you can see the breakdowns right in front of you on the screen. As we go into November building permit applications, and applications are different than building permits. They are the first step in obtaining a building permit. We had 394 applications for the month of November, almost identical to November of last year. So we're still not seeing any downturn in building development activity, building economic development activity. We issued a total of 405 permits in November, slightly more than November of last year. And there's the breakdown with our permit processing, with our building services coordinator processing to issuance 46 single family dwelling units. And of all of our permits, 66% of them were issued online in November. And then Debbie and Rebecca of the permit processing staff handled the rest, remaining 221. Debbie and Rebecca also developed a vehicle miles traveled reduction strategy, actually, where they are now processing permits such that applicants need not make a trip to City Hall. So we're trying to get ahead of the general plan EIR update.
I appreciate that effort, Jay.
And then last on our list is our ECAS solar permit trend line to reduce greenhouse gases. We issued 170 solar permits, double of what we did the same month last year. Part of that is because the state now requires all new single-family dwelling units to have solar. It's a little more complicated than that, but basically it comes out to be that it is a requirement that all new single-family dwelling units have to have solar. And so that's part of that dramatic increase in the number of solar permits that were issued as compared to last year. And that concludes my presentation. I'll be happy to answer any questions if there are any.
Thanks, Mr. Salazar. I will note that with the rains we've had recently, my solar panels are much happier. They may not be getting much sunlight, but they're getting a lot more of what does arrive comes through with the dust being washed off. Do other members of the commission have questions for or comments to Mr. Salazar? Seeing none, I will proceed to item number 10, which is the director's report, which I assume both A and B will be from Mr. Baderi. Go ahead, Fred.
Okay, so items coming up for the Planning Commission. As I mentioned, a special meeting on the evening of January 5th. So that'll start at the same time, 6 p.m. as our normal meetings, addressing the vehicle miles traveled and energy and conservation action strategy update. So we'll be hoping for a good discussion on that, looking for good ideas on things to incorporate in both those documents. Later in the month of January at your regular meeting, we will have an update on the downtown specific plan items that have happened in the intervening time period. There is, in addition, one apartment complex that we're anticipating being ready for hearing by the January meeting, and that is an apartment complex located on Peabody Road in just south of Elmira Road. So those items coming up in your near future meeting items. With regard to City Council actions pertaining to Planning Commission items, the last meeting was mostly devoted to swearing in the new council members. And so we will look forward to some other items coming to the council in the near future. We will be bringing to the Planning Commission, thinking farther ahead than January, quite a few items that you will be making recommendations on to the City Council. And that will include larger scale projects like the downtown specific plan, the code update, and the land needs assessment, as well as some of the smaller projects like the apartment complex I mentioned, which may require a zone change and thus go from the Planning Commission onto the City Council. But no other actions to report in the recent past from the City Council.
Thank you very much, Mr. Baderi. That concludes item number 10. And now we go on to item number 11. I know Commissioner Brent Johnson said he wanted to save some questions or comments for this time. So I'm going to, for the second time, give Brent the chance to open up the floor as we do commissioner comments. Mr. Johnson, anything that you wish to say before I give the other commissioners an opportunity?
Yes, thank you. I appreciate it, Chair McCauley. And it looks like we lost Tim Burke quite some time ago, which is who I was going to direct the bulk of my questions to, as they are public works related. So unfortunately, I think they may have to now go to our city attorney. So my apologies, Andrea. As the applicant for the Harbison Townhomes project brought to bear the issue regarding the Hawkins Park assessment district and being, if you will, forced into that assessment district. I understand that the city and the applicant have come to terms with that. So I think that's a great resolve. It did cause me to do my own investigations into that particular assessment district for Hawkins Park. And it did raise a lot of questions. I was curious as to how many parcels currently are being are included in that particular district, and was able to communicate with the SCI consultant for the city that handles that particular district. So she was very helpful in providing some clarification. I did learn through reading the fiscal year 2021 public works budget with regards to maintenance and assessment districts that the individual districts are limited to a rate increase which is capped at either 3% or the CPI for the year. And it was very appalling, and I'm trying to wrap my head around how the fiscal year 19 and 20 budget that was approved for public works for this particular item was $68,644, or a representative amount would be $44 per economic development unit. The next year, for fiscal year 2021, increased to 131,454, or 84 economic development units, which is, an increase of 40 EDUs, or 62,000. That represents a 91.5% increase year over year. And so from a CPI standpoint, I do understand that if the budget does not require as much for that particular assessment district, it can be lowered. What then establishes the baseline rate for that particular or any particular assessment district for that matter? Because I think that there should be a further transparency, I guess, as to especially for those residents that are being charged on their tax bills for these particular assessment districts, how that particular fee may have increased 91% year over year. Because, intuitively it would be reset each year. So each year it could only go up a maximum of 3%. And, perhaps it doesn't go up 3%, but the amount that it does go up establishes new baseline rate. So I'm curious as to how that baseline rate is set. And then the other one is more of a procedural question. What's the process for auditing the public works budget? Because there are a lot of red flags as I review it, and I'd like to better understand how they are held accountable and checked as to what they are budgeting.
City Attorney, I think that kind of throws it to you to see those that you can address now or those that you may wish to address somehow at a future meeting, but off to you, Andrea.
So my apologies, you're asking some very technical questions that I don't have all the answers to at this moment. I'm sure that we can have Public Works staff reach out to you and discuss with you how the baseline is calculated when the districts are formed. There's an analysis that's done to arrive at that calculation, which then, the city council approves of that action, and it's done via a public hearing. So I can give kind of general information about that. With respect to this specific district and that sharp increase that was seen in the last year, that was not an increase that would establish a baseline. That was due to some unexpected costs for items that needed to be addressed immediately at that specific park. I think if I'm remembering correctly, there was a light pole that had been taken out or fallen that needed to be repaired immediately. We had to hire a contractor for that. And then also there was some rubberized, like permeable, it's like the playground material that had decompensated and needed to be replaced. And it was an additional expense. So I think that kind of explains one of your questions about that increase. Now, in terms of the baseline, those specifics, I would need to defer to Public Works on how that is established. With respect to your other question, and I apologize, I did not get everything down that you asked about. Can you restate your second question? Oh, sure. The budget. I'm sorry. You're asking about the audit. So, all of the city's budget and finances is audited internally and by an external auditor. I think discrepancies that are identified are addressed through our finance audits. In terms of getting into the specifics, I mean, the Planning Commission does not have jurisdiction over the city budget. So I think budgetary questions related to specific projects that come before the commission are appropriate, but I'm not sure how much detail we would get into with the commission regarding audits and what could be done related to budgetary issues. So, I'm thinking, Commissioner Johnson, that it may be best for you to connect with staff and let's see, if there are items that are appropriate to bring to the commission, if we can kind of narrow down the areas that commissioners would like to have brought back so that we can either do a presentation for the public or some sort of information sharing. We can certainly work on kind of narrowing those issues and getting that information to the commission if it's appropriate.
Yes, definitely. And I understand we may not have purview over or anything relating to their particular budget. However, as a representative of the general public, I feel a duty to kind of raise my hand when I feel that there may not be transparency where there should be. And so I would like to pursue this, and I figure this is the perfect forum to voice that concern, and I will definitely go the route that you suggest and kind of go from there. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Commissioner Johnson. Are there other members of the commission that have comments that they would like before we close the meeting? I don't see any hands that are coming up. I guess people are ready to call it a wrap up. Commissioner Aldrich, go ahead, Jen.
Yes, I would like to take this opportunity to thank Nancy and Albert for helping me get through tonight. And it seemed to have gone quite well. So again, thank you. And I would like to take this opportunity also to wish everybody a happy holidays, a Merry Christmas, and a Happy New Year. And let's go into 2021 with our heads held high and high hopes.
Yeah, and specifically calling out Albert for his work, not just helping you, but for a second meeting in a row, helping Roberto make sure that he was connected so that he could participate. I'll call out the gold star for Albert on that one. Any other commissioners that have comments that they wish to make? Aside from for all of us, I think, I'm not sure a fond farewell, but an expectant farewell to 2020, and I hope that 2021 is a much better and less viral year than 2020 has been. And seeing no other hands, I will join with that wish that whatever holidays you celebrate, they are very good. We will see you in early 2021. This meeting is adjourned. Good night, Vacaville.